It's that famous time of the year again, the event that happens only 12 months out of the year. This is the time where we boast or roast the gacha games that exist, as we can see just how their sales have been for this month. This holy day is dubbed Sensor Tower Monthly Revenue Report, and it's a great way to see just how good, or bad, a gacha game is doing. In this Roundhouse Tournament style series, the top contenders are normally the likes of, well, any Hoyo game, aka Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, but every now and then, a contender will rise to the occasion. The thing about this though, is that the tower only accounts for mobile sales, which, albeit, is a vast majority of the sales, but definitely not the full picture. Now, with the release of this information, a lot of speculation and debates can arise, such as when the end of service of games is coming and just how poorly the games are received. Many circumstances can be drawn from this data alone, especially if you deep dive into each of these games, but one thing's for sure, false expectations and assumptions are the main predator for this type of information. From seeing the poor sales of some games, many people see a red margin and assume, oh, this game won't last much longer. But that can be far from the truth depending on many things. For instance, people are saying just how terrible a game Wuthering is based solely on this data, which is far from the truth, considering the quality of this game is the same, if not better, than the king on this list, Genshin Impact. My name is Void Enigma, and I'll be diving into this list slightly and explaining how this data affects many of the gacha games that we love to play, and why it is very misleading depending on many aspects. I'll also be explaining why this list can also be a false representation of the game's profits, and why also assuming that if a game is failing, that does not mean that they actually have lower revenue. Now, what is considered good on this list? Well, the top dogs make at least 20 million per month, which is quite massive, honestly. The mid-tier revenue scale to anything that's above, say, 5 or 7 million, and the bottom tier games are the ones that barely break 1 million. Here's why this data is very misleading. Firstly, we have a game like Genshin Impact, and sure, this game has made $51 million on the mobile side, but how much of that is actual profit? How much have they made on other avenues of revenue? And how much are they going to need to keep making content? Let's look at one game that is potentially making way more money than Genshin Impact. And surprisingly, it's a new game on the list that I really only have heard of like once or twice in passing. And that's 11 Deep Space. Now, I'm not a fan of this game, but I must say that it has been catching waves. I'll be brutally honest and say that I have never played this game, but looking at the gameplay, it's decent. It seems to be in the same niche as a stage-by-stage game where the gameplay exists in the stages and where there's a hub, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Now, this game seems to be on the same level of PGR, and I won't nitpick and say which one's better or worse, but the gameplay is similar when you're actually in the combat stages, and the cost is potentially very similar, or even less, could be more. But the main difference is this is a dating sim, first and foremost. This appeals mainly to the people who are attracted to, how do I say this? Let's just say that the people attracted to this know their type of man, and they really know their type of man. The thing is about this game, despite seeming to be similar in combat to PGR and Honkai Impact 3rd, it's made $100 million over the past 2 months, which is insane. Meanwhile, PGR and Honkai Impact have made about 10 million in that same period, combined. So while I can't break down just how much goes into these gacha games, I can assure you that it is a lot for some cases. The cost to maintain Genshin Impact is roughly 200 million a year, just to maintain it, which amounts to maybe 17 million a month. Meanwhile, a game like 11 Deep Space may cost around $1 million on a month-to-month basis, or 12 million for the year, which means that 11 Deep Space has a profit margin of about 99%. Meanwhile, Genshin Impact's profit is cut by about 30% off rip. Genshin Impact also pays a lot for advertising and marketing and many other aspects. If you actually take a look at this video, I discuss how Genshin Impact came to be the giant that it is today, and they spent an exuberant amount of money on just their music. And that makes sense considering how much they actually show off their music. Now, take those numbers with a giant grain of salt, please. I'm just giving a ballpark estimate about what I know about running live service games, but of course I've never been a part of something that's massive as Genshin Impact or anything on this list really. Now that we've actually established what is considered good and how the profits might differ from the actual numbers, we can begin to look at certain games and why the value can be very misleading. Firstly, remember that first point that I made, that this is not the full picture? We are only seeing a slice of the pie, and albeit it is a big slice, but it still isn't the full picture, or the entire pie. This doesn't account for the total sales that come from all platforms, and I don't know for sure how many players top up on PC, but I'm 100% sure that WoWa has more players playing on PC, just because of how much of a better experience it is. Despite this fact, most players probably still play on phone because it's just so much more accessible. Either way, Wuthering Waves does not spend nearly as much money on maintenance as Genshin Impact, and this can change in the future drastically depending on how much money Wuthering Waves makes in the future. Genshin has gotten so big that it can warrant the investment into the music, marketing, and all other events and collabs that they do, but WoWa doesn't have that luxury yet. They are slowly evolving their internal works, such as with the music and investment into voice acting side of things and stuff like that, and we have yet to see their full potential. I've come across rumors and comments, some of which are even on my current video, saying, get this, Wuthering Waves is heading to the end of service territory, and honestly, it's hilarious. Like, honestly, it's just baffling. Believing that Wuthering Waves is heading to end of service just because they made 1/5 of Genshin Impact's total revenue is just straight up false. The Sensor Tower features Wuthering Waves, which has made about 10 million this month, which is still a very large amount. Sustainability is not the question we should be asking here. The issue with Wuthering Waves' low revenue can stem from a few things. Firstly, they were released in the wrong era. Let's be real. Genshin Impact is at its peak, it is not going anywhere. And secondly, it is not a casual game. This game is dedicated to giving you at least a challenge, and a lot of people are not up for that challenge. And the world is definitely not as pretty as Genshin Impact. I've made a whole video discussing this, but it's a grueling, gruesome world, apocalyptic, and they've only just now started to add some amazing scenery in the recent updates that I really enjoy, but it's not really for everyone. Another factor that can attribute to the low sales of Wuthering Waves is literally their generosity. I've invested in the monthly pass and battle pass in WoWa, and I've had zero need to spend money on this game so far, and I've gotten literally everything that I wanted. It's kind of insane. They even gave me a free Shengliao, like, come on. The day may come where this will warrant the need for people to spend money on the game, but as of now, there's just no need to. I believe that Kuro Games is focusing on growing their community, and once that happens, then they may actually see more people invest into the game. Not saying that you should spend money on the game to begin with, but the whales will always come in and the dolphins are more than welcome. Hopefully, when they actually add more monetization methods, such as skins, then they'll actually see an increase in actual revenue. You will know when a game is heading to end of service, trust me. Even a game like One Piece Treasure Cruise, which has been running for over 10 years, is still quite functional while making only about 3 million a month. Then we have games like Brown Dust 2, which deserves much more love in my opinion, and they're making about 1.5 million a month. You have to understand that that number that you're seeing, this is $1 million fucking dollars. Trust me, if you could walk home with even 1% of that income, you'd be more than happy for the month. You know a game is heading to end of service when you see something like One Punch Man making 31k for 2 months straight. And you know what else is accompanying that value? A lot of people talking about how shit the game is everywhere. So is Wuthering Waves losing to Genshin Impact in revenue? Yes, 100%. But does that mean that Wuthering Waves is a bad game heading to their demise? Yeah, that's a large of a stretch. The Sensor Tower is meant to be taken with a grain of salt and shouldn't be the end-all be-all for a game in particular. It's just a fun way of seeing who's making the most money and how much money these games can steal, earn from their players. Go ahead and comment down below how you feel about these numbers and what that means for you as a gamer. If you enjoyed this enigmatic content, then go ahead and like this video and subscribe if you really liked it. Until next time, Enigma out.